Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We're back. I know we're back. It's another week, episode number 5 of the Fantasy Cast, powered by Shocker Sports. I am your co-host, Lachlan McTagg, joined alongside, as always, with the other co-host, Ty White. Ty, how are you? All good?
Oh, Lachlan, I'm fantastic. You know what? In my own personal life, I'm starting to put fantasy football aside and just appreciate the Los Angeles Chargers. I mean, they have treated us to some beautiful games. What a friggin' win against Oakland on Monday Night Football. So that was my night. So last night. So I mean, I couldn't be happier. How about yourself over there in Massachusetts?
Life's good here. We had a showcase this past weekend. We played 4 games in 3 days over the weekend. The boys went 3-1. Should have gone 4-0, but tough game there, on Saturday. But it's okay. Came out with the 3-1 record to start the season. Parents came down too, so it was nice to see them. They made the trip down from Toronto. So always nice to see them, and had a day off yesterday, or I guess Monday, which, always nice to have a day off, considering it's like my second day off of the season.
Yeah.
Now that preseason's over, we're gonna have some days off now, like weekly, I'd say, after the weekend and whatnot. But yeah, all good here. Didn't catch much football this week because we had 2 games on Sunday.
Understandable.
So I did what I could. I tried to watch as much football as I could, and then we were driving home during the a Sunday nighter in New England, and it was very interesting actually in the Massachusetts area. Had the pleasure of being in several restaurants over the weekend, and heard many fantastic conversations about how the Patriots were going to beat Tom Brady and the Buccaneers because, no one knows Brady better than Belichick. So,
Which is true.
I heard all that crap from people. And
yeah, I mean, it for people who watched that game, and I think over 28 million did. So
it's a great game
did too. It was a good game. And dude, Mac Jones looked incredible it was obviously, if this was being played in Tampa Bay and it was perfect weather, I mean, the Bucs on paper should kill them. But because it was like a rainy night in New England,
it was a crappy day.
Yeah,
brutal.
It was a crappy day. It was a bit of a crap fest game, but I mean, Mac Jones went toe to toe with the greatest player to ever step on the gridiron. So you got to give him kudos there.
I mean, that the Pats got Brady though. Classic, down by single digits.
Yeah.
It's always like they're down by 5. It's never like down by like an exact touchdown.
Yeah, for sure.
They're always down by like 4. It's like 4 points. It's like some
it's some weird number. And
it's
then Brady sneaks out a win too with that doink at the end of the game. I mean, to be fair, that was a good kick, and 54 yards in the rain is a great kick. But for 54 yards in the rain, it was a good kick, but unfortunately just a little wide, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
Brady's beating.
So now we're probably gonna hop right in. That we've all been treated to more Chargers talk. Actually, before, I have a question for you, Ty.
Yes.
Do you think there were more Raider fans or Charger fans at SoFi? I'm just curious.
No, unfortunately, no. Unfortunately, I actually do know this. I think it was 74% Raider fans.
Oh,
to 26. Yeah. So not the best. But that being said, the Chargers fans that were there were loud and proud, and I appreciate that. And to anyone who says they don't have fans, go to San Diego. Trust me, the fans are there, but they're not in LA. I'll be completely honest with you. Most of them are not in LA.
I mean, hey, if SoFi was in San Diego, that place would be buzzing all year long. But just the way it is being in LA. But I'm only teasing you. The Chargers are off to a tremendous start. They look great. Yeah. So
no, but you do have a point. I mean, that's the only downside, I guess. But I'm very proud of the boys right now.
Yeah. Let's jump right into it, man. How about we do that?
How about we do it, Loch? We got a great episode for you today. We go over the top performers as usual. We got some waiver wire pickups. We have a new thing where we're doing starts and sits. So we're going to name about 5 or 6 players that we believe you should start or sit the upcoming fantasy week. And then next week, we're going to look back on our predictions and see if we were just talking out of our rear end or we actually know what we were talking about. So that should be fun. And we're obviously ending off with the fantasy player of the week and the fantasy question of the week. So we got a jam-packed, good content, loaded episode for all you folks at home.
Trying to help the boys out a little bit in fantasy football here.
Oh yeah, gotta give you guys some advice. So we're going to someone for top performers lock, and we're going to start off with quarterbacks. Obviously, you got Patrick Mahomes, who put up 31. You have Jalen Hurts, who had a great week. He had 28 against the Chiefs, actually. But their defense is lacking. The Chiefs' defense is lacking. So it's smart to start quarterbacks against the Kansas City Chiefs right now. Dak Prescott, 27. Aaron Rodgers, 24. Justin Herbert, 21. Lachlan, your very own Matt Ryan had 29 points against the football team, who are kind of rocking right now on defensively, I have to say. And then Sam Darnold with 31. Sam Darnold. Wow, that guy can ball.
That was I watched parts of that game, and there were times where, when Trayvon Diggs had those couple picks there. I mean, that guy's nuts right now.
He's insane.
He's going crazy. But there were times where, you saw like some of those throws from Darnold and you're like, okay, are we seeing a little bit of last year coming out now? And then towards the end of that game, it seemed like Dallas was going to really just put the boots to them and shut them down. And they slowly kind of came back and made that a little bit more of a respectable score, considering, what Zeke and Dak and the boys on offense were doing. Darnold made it somewhat interesting of a score line at the end just because of what he was doing near the end of the game. So I thought, that was really interesting to see.
No, absolutely. And he did it without Christian McCaffrey. He did it without the best player on the Panthers for the last 5 years. So, and one of the best players in the NFL, undoubtedly. So that was very impressive for them to even stick in that game. And it shows that the Panthers are actually quite a legitimate team. They're sitting at 3-1 right now.
And I mean, with the trade they pulled off last week as well with the Jags, which was mind blowing. But I'm not an NFL GM, so who am I to sit here and criticize moves like that? But CJ Henderson,
the guy
former first round pick, and and him and JC Horn are back fully healthy again, or when JC Horn's back fully healthy. I mean,
it looks dangerous. It looks dangerous for sure. We're going to move on to some running backs, starting off with the person, I believe he had the most points amongst running back. Lachlan, yours truly, Cordarrelle Patterson of the Atlanta Falcons. What?
We're gonna talk about him a little bit later because we just always talk about this guy. Like it's nuts. That Matt Ryan was just finding him all day. Cordell looked like he was just hitting all the soft spots of that Washington defense. Yeah. And just one of those things, like, have a day, man. When the ball's finding you, the ball's finding you. I mean, for sure. There's nothing else to it, really. I mean, still waiting for Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts to wake up a little bit here. But, as a Falcons fan, never going to complain about that.
No, 34.6 fantasy points for Cordarrelle Patterson, which was insane. He had three receiving touchdowns, and it wasn't not all dinky ones out the backfield. We're talking like a pretty significantly long pass from Matt Ryan.
Pretty legit touchdowns. So,
yes.
Not quite a natural hat trick, but
Yeah, no, but this Atlanta offense is something on paper, at least. The weapons that this team has. I mean, you got Mike Davis, and then you got Cordarrelle Patterson, you got Calvin Ridley, you got you got your tight end Kyle Pitts, and then you also have, fortunately, Russell Gage, who hasn't been doing the greatest, and he's questionable for the upcoming week. But on paper, I mean, their offense is very good. Moving on from the Falcons, of course. Oh my gosh, how can you not mention Austin Eckler of the Chargers? 2 total touchdowns last night.
A big one.
29.5 fantasy points. He was absolutely incredible. Yeah. Saquon Barkley, you might have seen our Instagram. We asked you, is Saquon Barkley back for good? Personally, I don't think he is, just because the team he's on. But he did have 29.6 points.
back for good is
Yeah.
that's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's like if Daniel, like, is Daniel Jones back for good? Like, I
No.
don't know. Is that O-line good? No. So then
Yeah.
maybe not,
Yeah, for sure. But like, regardless, great game. So you have to give credit where credit is
Yeah.
due. Yeah.
Sigh of relief for fantasy managers to see that. Oh
Especially
my
if you
God.
started him. Good on you if you started him.
Yeah, seriously. If you started him, that's a lot of respect there, because I know some people who have not started him in the past 3 weeks or so, just because he hasn't been putting up what he should be or what he's projected to every week. So, if you started him and kind of stuck out that tough stretch there and got rewarded with a nice 30-point game, then good on you.
Yeah, hopefully you got the dub if you started Saquon. Then you also have, just finishing off some running backs. You had Derrick Henry, 25, Najee Harris at 21, David Montgomery, 22, Kenneth Gainwell of the Eagles, who I did mention a couple of weeks ago is someone you should definitely pick up. He had 20.9 points. He started to overtake Miles Sanders in terms of fantasy production. And then Loch, Jonathan Taylor's back, or at least to some extent. He had 20.4 fantasy points. So that was a good week for him in the Colts.
Yeah, and Naeem Hines had a bit of a rough week as well. So, I mean, they were looking more to Taylor in that game anyway. But again, that Colts team, I think, down the stretch this season, they're going to be a very strong team, I'd say, with their receiving core and with Jonathan Taylor. I think they'll be just fine. So if you have Jonathan Taylor, please don't hit the panic button, please, because it's really not that time yet. If Jonathan Taylor has 3, maybe 4 more like really horrible weeks, then maybe you can move on from him. But right now, I personally would not, because this Colts team is just looking too good and too strong to give up on a guy like Jonathan Taylor.
I completely agree with you for sure. So, fantasy manager, don't panic just yet because he's starting to come back.
Yeah, I got a couple.
Off,
yeah,
oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Too. Deebo Samuel, big week, big week for the Niners. 8 receptions, 156 yards, 2 tight ends, 2 touchdowns.
Well, that's 35.7 fantasy points for Deebo. Yeah, I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Big week. And also, James Robinson slowly kind of awakening now, with Urban Meyer using him a little bit more. Back-to-back 20-plus point games, which is encouraging, very encouraging, considering he's the lone back in that Jacksonville system. And the Bills defense, oh my goodness, what a day to have a day for the Bills defense. Wow.
It was against Davis Mills and the Texans, but all that aside, Loch, that is 2 shutouts. They have 2 shutouts on the year.
Shutouts. Yeah, it's nuts. Like any NFL team would be happy with 1 shutout every other year.
Yeah.
Let alone 2 shutouts in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And yes, Davis Mills, obviously not your household name quarterback at all.
No, but maybe now. But maybe
conditions were horrible in Buffalo.
They sucked.
It was just coming down out there.
And it was very worrisome too if you were a fantasy manager, because literally the first play of the game, Josh Allen throws a duck over.
Oh my God, I watched that. I was eating lunch, and I almost like spat out my food because I was like, oh my God, Diggs is cutting across the middle, or was it Diggs or Sanders? I forget. I think it was Diggs.
It was Stephon Diggs. It was just a simple in.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a far throw. It was a
7-yard in. It was like a 7-yard in, and he overthrew him by a couple feet, and you're like, oh, okay, it's one of those games. It's not good. But yeah, the Bills defense, 4 interceptions. Ugh.
Yucky.
Ugh.
Nasty.
And a fumble recovery and the 0 points against. I mean, that's just tremendous.
Yeah. Buffalo's defense is certainly one of the top in the NFL, and a defense that you should be starting on a weekly basis, unless they face some
except for this week, because they're on a Sunday nighter in Kansas City. So,
I'm very much looking forward to watching that game.
It'll be Sunday night Mahomes. So
yeah.
He's
starting to climb back. Yeah, after that Chargers game too, he's starting to climb back. He had a great week against the Eagles. And so did the rest of Kansas City. Speaking of which, Tyreek Hill, 47 0.6 fantasy points. He had 3 total touchdowns, over 150 receiving yards. He only dropped 1 pass on the day with 12 targets. So he was just absolutely incredible. He was the best player in the NFL this past weekend. And certainly disconcerting if you're a Chargers fan or an AFC West fan like me. But, I mean, you have to, once again, give credit where credit is due. Tyreek Hill, the best week in fantasy football on receiver. Just a few more names for you. Terry McLaurin with 30. One of them was a fluke touchdown. I don't care. That was a fluke touchdown against the Falcons. Just in the end, I mean, just that should have been picked, to be honest. But Heineke just kind of
that's the Falcons secondary for you right there.
Yeah. Does that sum up the season so far? Oh gosh. You also had Justin Jefferson at 20. DJ Moore. We mentioned the Panthers before. DJ Moore at 31. It was a huge week from DJ Moore. That's the kind of production that you fantasy managers expect from him, especially drafting him probably in the 2nd or 3rd round this year.
Yeah, him and Robbie Anderson had a good game. I feel like
yes.
Darnold and Robbie Anderson are kind of reuniting a little bit. Former teammates over in New York,
in miserable football town, but not so miserable because both New York teams came away with a win this week. What the heck? Both in overtime too. Something we're not used to seeing. So that's a good week for New York football. All 3 teams in New York come away with the W.
We're seeing the new era, New Orleans Saints here.
No,
this is no longer are the New Orleans Saints the mid 2000s to mid 2010s New Orleans Saints, where they just run the NFC South. Those days are over, I'm afraid, for a lot of people. So.
Yeah, and Jameis Winston once again did not look the greatest. I mean, that team is very questionable right now, and
they need Michael Thomas in a bad way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
really bad way.
Like, look how much they're missing Emmanuel Sanders too. I mean, just guys who can produce for that team. Jared Cook also gone. Guess where he went? The Chargers. Guess what he did? Put up 19 points on Monday Night Football with a touchdown reception. I mean, that guy was just sucking in everything that came his way. It was amazing to watch because Herbert had some very, very difficult throws. And Cook was able to just jump up and catch very, very long balls. So
the Raiders line was actually a really good test for the Chargers O-line. Like, I feel like those 2 lines going head to head was actually a very, very good matchup.
Yes.
Because the Chargers have obviously made massive improvements to protect Herbert. And the sneakiness of the Raiders defense is showing a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they have an incredible defense, and for the first, the Chargers scored on their opening drive, but then they went 3-and-out the next 5. So Gus Bradley and the Raiders defense did some great things. And the Raiders defense is are a defensive unit, special teams unit that you should definitely start unless they're facing a high-powered offense like the Chargers or the Chiefs or something like that. But they are very impressive. So it is a pretty safe option with good pass rush. So you can expect to get sacks in that game for sure. And hopefully a couple picks. Just to finish off some other names, Jamison Crowder, his first game back, he had 19 points. So that was great. That's promising for Jets fans. And Jamison Crowder actually was like a fringe starter flex last year in all of fantasy. And he was on my team. And helped me win some football games there. So that was great. Devonta Smith had 19 points. Corey Davis at 21, another Jets receiver. So good day for the Jets. Randall Cobb at 23. Hunter Renfrow 16. So some just names that just stand out for. Now, we're going to move on to the waiver wire here, Lachlan. Players that we think that you should pick up. We have about 5 or 6. And number 1, again, if you do not have him, pick him up. I just mentioned his name. It's Hunter Renfrow of the Las Vegas Raiders. He has not had a game lower than 10 points this year. He's just consistent. He had 13, 10, 18, and 16. He's getting more than he hasn't gotten less than 6 targets a game. He's running amazing routes in the game. He's run a China route at least 2 or 3 times, and 2 of them were for touchdowns. So
that route's nasty.
No, it's so disgusting.
Nasty.
So I mean, it's someone that you gotta look out for. And the Raiders, I mean, they have Henry Ruggs and Darren Waller, so it's not like they're going to be looking to specifically take Hunter Renfrow out of the game plan, because the Raiders do have weapons on that offense. So, and they are technically a run first team, even though the Derek Carr is the most passing yards in the league, they're converting to more of a passing offense, as you can definitely see now. And Hunter Renfrow is someone that you'll definitely want to pick up. Loch, I believe you have the second guy out of Chicago.
Yeah, Damian Williams. And this is a situation to monitor a little bit all week. Because he should be a must add this week for fantasy managers. With David Montgomery being out for the next couple weeks, Damian Williams is going to be your number one. And now Andy Dalton, the Bears have said that he's going to be QB1 when he is healthy, which means Justin Fields is back on the bench. So yeah, Damian Williams right now though is listed as questionable. He received a thigh bruise during Sunday's win over the Lions. This all coming from ESPN Fantasy Football app. So if you have any more recent news, then
good on you.
Then fair enough. Cool.
Yeah. But Damian Williams is certainly someone that, I mean, his production is growing. He had 15 points last week. So that's easily a running back start. And
again, even if let's say he misses a couple practices this week and is put on the inactives list, still keep him. Don't drop him because he's missing this week, because Montgomery's going to be out for 4 or 5 weeks. Right. So that's an extra couple weeks after Williams misses this week, if he does, of fantasy production.
Yeah, absolutely. So Damian Williams definitely someone to look at. Also, someone potentially, he's kind of like a 2.5 on this list, you could say, is Darnell Mooney, who had 18 last week. He had 150 or something around there receiving yards, 18 fantasy points. And Darnell Mooney's very talented. It's just that Chicago has trouble getting him the ball. But the thing is, because he had such a big week, he's going to be someone who's definitely more reliable for that offense as a target besides Allen Robinson. So I can definitely see his production growing. So he is someone that you should definitely keep your eye out. And if you're looking for more wide receiver depth on your team. Next, Loch, I mentioned this name before, Jamison Crowder. He had 19 points his first week back. He is a very, very good wide receiver. He's someone who's not the tallest, not the fastest, but he just finds a way to catch passes. And Zach Wilson starting to look a little bit better. So that's promising for that.
He's trying, man. You can see he's doing everything he can. It's just like that O-line is just they're not giving him any help. And I think that O-line is going to look a lot different this time next year.
Let's hope so for his sake.
I think a lot of teams, that are building, like Jacksonville and the Jets, they're going to do kind of what the Chargers did and, finish this season maybe with not the greatest record, and put themselves in a position to draft a top tier O lineman in the draft and then build their line from there to protect their quarterback, their franchise QB. So, Wilson, it's not for a lack of trying on his end.
No, for sure.
At all.
Yeah. It's just, and I wouldn't say he's necessarily a fantasy start, but he does have the weapons out there. So maybe if you absolutely need someone, Zach isn't the worst shout. Next, Loch, I believe you have a tight end out of upstate New York.
Yeah, Dawson Knox with a pretty good week this week, and that Bills offense is just cooking right now. I mean, the points that they've put up over the past couple weeks, and Josh Allen. I mean, we mentioned the Bills defense, and in really terrible conditions there, but that didn't seem to phase Josh Allen at all, or Mitch Trubisky. I mean, Money Mitch getting his first touchdown as a Buffalo Bill. How are you?
That was a pleasure.
But it just looked like another day at the office for Josh Allen. And I'll mention another name as well in that Bills offense, Zach Moss, too. I think, and a lot of the consensus really is that Zach Moss is the lead back in Buffalo, not Singletary, because Zach Moss is more of a power back, I'd say.
Sure.
He's a bigger guy than Singletary, and he's perfectly capable of just running through people.
Yeah.
And I think, situationally, Josh Allen is going to look to pass first. And, if he passes, he might not always hit Zach Moss. He might hit Singletary or one of his many weapons, Diggs, Beasley, Sanders, Knox, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but for those short yardage plays, like your 3rd and 3, they hand it off when they don't always want Allen running the ball. They'll look to Zach Moss as well. And again, goal line reps too. So, those Dawson Knox actually gets his fair share of goal line volume. We saw that a lot last year as well, where they'd go play action and Knox would kind of hold his block, release his guy, and walk into the end zone basically. Yes. So those two are for sure people to look out for on the waiver wire.
Those are absolutely the two, and those are the last two on our list here, Loch, because you look at them, they're both touchdown dependent. However, they get the targets because Buffalo is so efficient at getting the ball into the red zone. Dawson Knox has not had a game lower than 8, and that game lower than 8, I think, was the game that he did get 8 was week 1. From then he's had 9, then 14, then 20. So he's getting better. He had 2 touchdowns last game. You look at Zach Moss, he hasn't had a game lower than 12. He had 12, 18, 15. He's had 4 touchdowns in his last 3 games, and those total touchdowns, because he does get some targets at the backfield. And like you said, I'd say that he's the number 1 to Singletary, because although Singletary does get a decent amount of reps, Zach Moss gets the red zone touches. He gets the goal line looks. He's the one that is actually carrying that ball into the end zone. So those are 2 great players on the Buffalo offense that, they're going to get their fair share of chances if healthy. And those are 2 players that we really like.
Now we're not saying that every single week Dawson Knox and Zach Moss will be your producers of your team. These guys will, especially Dawson Knox, I'd say, who is, I think he's a little bit more touchdown dependent because the carries will always be there for Zach Moss. But, every couple of weeks, Knox is due for a touchdown. I think he's very similar to what Robert Tonyan was last year in that Packers offense, where, down the stretch, when Aaron Rodgers was really making his MVP push, it seemed like Tonyan had a touchdown a game. It seemed like it, and it very well could have been, because he had, oh God, what did he had like 10 or 11 touchdowns last year.
I think it was 10.
Yeah. And they weren't all like terribly difficult touchdowns either.
No, a lot of them were those red zone. It was you motion Devontae Adams, and then he just runs a small out or even a fade. So Tonyan, that's actually a fantastic comparison, because that's what this Bills offense is deadly, like last year's Green Bay's offense. So definitely, like you said, not necessarily every single week. However, Dawson Knox is getting better every week, as we've seen in fantasy, and he's someone who's starting to become more reliable as along with Zach Moss. Now we're moving to a new segment, start versus sit. So I'm going to mention some players here that I think you should start for this week. Coming up, number 1 is Corey Davis versus Atlanta. Because you look what Terry McLaurin, the wide receiver 1 on the football team, did to Atlanta. He put up 30 points. Corey Davis is a great receiver. They're starting to target him more. Zach Wilson's getting a bit more of a groove. I think you should start him. And then another person in that much as well, you got Matt Ryan facing the Jets defense. Matt Ryan should torch that defense because of his weapons, and he should just get the production. He had 29 points last week against the football team, so he should have a good week here. And Lachlan, let's just talk just briefly about that game, because where is it being held?
Oh, it's in beautiful London, England. Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
The Hotspurs, you got Harry Kane, get your tea, get your crumpets, and head out to the football pitch. Dude, it's going to be a blazing game.
9:30 in the morning on Sunday.
Ooh, you're going to be, I'm going to be awake. No, I don't know about you.
Yeah. Actually, yes, I will, because we have a game on Sunday. So I'll be wide awake.
Just have it on the bench underneath, and you're.
But if you're a football fan, 9:30 in the morning. If you're going to a game, if you're going to like a 1:00 game at a stadium, you can pull up at the tailgate at 8 a.m. and
throw
on the 9:30. throw on the 9:30 where you're having a nice tailgate in the parking lot of your beloved stadium.
So you're typically tailgating if it's a 1:00 game, like 4 hours beforehand. So you're getting pretty. I mean, you're not sobering up. Let's just say that you're not sobering up. Like
that's all we're gonna say.
Around 10 in the morning. I mean, this game you're gonna be have to getting up at like 6, maybe 5 to start pregame with your dad. I don't know how big.
Well, I mean, Falcons and Jets fans are gonna have a fun one this week.
But the biggest question is where the heck are football fans? You might be asking yourself, where am I going to get my wings for that Saturday morning? I'm going to tell you exactly where you can get your wings. You're going to get before, and you're going to pull up to St. Louis. You're going to pull up the Buffalo Wild Wings because they're not, quite frankly, they're not opening at 5.
Yeah, I don't think B-Dubs is serving you at 9 a.m.
No,
unfortunately.
You can't. So you're going to get them. Then you're going to start cooking those things up. You're going to put them in the fridge overnight. You're going to start cooking them up. And they
heat that oven at about 7:30.
About 7, dude. It's gonna be nice. You put the oven around between 350 and 400 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, you're laughing by kickoff because you got a nice bowl of wings. You got your beverage of choice, and you're gonna be up by like 4 or 5 hours, presumably by that point. So you shouldn't be feeling those morning.
Sunday scaries. The Sunday scaries should not. The Sunday scaries shouldn't be setting in until around. I'd say 7 o'clock, 7:30, when you realize that you've been watching football since 9 a.m. and have done nothing with your day.
Yeah. I mean, so that's our suggestion on what you should do for that game.
Yeah.
But jokes aside, I mean, another start, definitely Kirk Cousins versus Detroit. Kirk Cousins, apart from last week, has had over 20 points each game. And Matt Ryan to the Jets, Kirk Cousins should light up a Detroit Lions defense. And then two more options for you. Sam Darnold versus Philadelphia. We saw what Pat Mahomes did to Philadelphia. We've seen the groove that Sam Darnold is in right now. He leads the NFL in rushing touchdowns. Excuse me, Sam Darnold. So, I mean, just like he's going through something right now, and we're happy for him. McCaffrey's still out. So if you're looking to run the ball, they're probably going to let Sam use his legs and try to beat that Philly defense. And Lachlan, finally, for starts, we're talking any Bills offensive player versus Kansas City. Kansas City's getting torched on defense. I mean, they've got to figure something out because their offense, we've seen what happens when their offense does not make up for their lackluster defense. It results in a Chargers win. So they're gonna have to, but no, seriously though, because that's the reason why usually their offensive production more than helps their lackluster defense. But now that's not always the case if the offense is going to be screwing up. So I like everyone on the Bills this week because chances are you're going to have lots of targets to all the top receivers, except, offensive production from Devin Singletary, but Zach Moss, Emmanuel Sanders, Cole Beasley, and Stephon Diggs, of course, Dawson Knox. So those are 5 players that definitely I would look at starting this week.
Also, there's a lot of meaning in this game. Yes. Bills are on the road in Kansas City on a Sunday night primetime game facing the team that ended their season last year.
That's very true.
I mean, this game's a recipe for an absolute shootout. I have the Bills defense on my team and I am scrambling. To find a defense this week. One, because I'm last in the waiver order because I'm 4-0. Sorry. But second of all, because I'm not starting the Bills defense against Kansas City against Sunday night Mahomes.
Yeah.
You serious?
You out of your mind?
Al Michaels and anytime Chris Collinsworth is in the booth with Patrick Mahomes playing, it's just, you hear Chris Collinsworth's voice, you just know that Mahomes, and you just know that Chris Collinsworth has not shut up about Travis Kelce's route running the whole game. You just know that.
Travis Kelce's definitely one of the best in the league. I mean, he's gonna put on his famous voice and start chatting about that Chiefs offense. I mean, he's gonna just back and forth between those two offenses the whole game. So it should be fun. Should be a fun call there. Loch, we also got some sits for this week. We're sitting Trey Lance against Arizona. I'm sorry. We're doing it because Trey Lance, I don't think, is ready for that pass rush. and ready for a
also,
hot 4-0 team.
that you can't really trust San Fran right now, like in fantasy, because Kyle Shanahan just hates fantasy football with a passion.
He does.
He just
doesn't
hates
care
it.
about your fantasy football.
He just
team.
hates it because you can't depend on any one running back.
Yeah.
It's kind of risky a little bit to try and put all your eggs in one basket for a receiver.
Yeah.
And
easier,
then not to mention that they run read options at the goal line with Trey Lance after Jimmy Garoppolo has played the whole game. And they kind of switch those two quarterbacks out and they use them interchangeably throughout the game. So Kyle Shanahan's just throwing everything in there and just seeing what works. So
yeah, that's true. He runs a very unique offense. It's kind of like last year's Colts. I mean, you'd have Phillip Rivers in there for an entire drive, and you get near the goal line, and you put in like Jacoby Brissett to just run the ball. And so it's kind of like that. But anyways, I'm sitting Trey Lance this week if I were fantasy football managers. The entire Browns offense, I will not start against the Chargers, because you saw what the Chargers shut out arguably the number one offense in the NFL on Monday Night Football in the first half. They actually had negative yards, I believe, at one point.
Nuts.
So the Chargers completely shut them down. Brandon Staley is one of the most brilliant minds in football, especially he's a defensive-minded coach. So I really expect him to shut down the Browns offense. And it's not like the Browns are in a hot streak. Baker Mayfield had 9 fantasy points last week. Odell had about like 5. None of the receivers are really going off. The team only scored 14 points last week. And the reason they were able to do that against Minnesota is because their defense. It's not like Minnesota has a phenomenal defense by any means, which they don't. So I sincerely think that you should avoid Browns players, offensive players this week. You also got Miles Sanders versus Carolina. I would sit him because Sanders' production is dropping like it's hot. And then Kenneth Gainwell is actually going up in terms of production. So I don't like Miles Sanders. He only had 10 points last week. He's really starting to struggle. Noah Fant versus Pittsburgh. This is a more unique one because although Noah Fant did have 15, 16 points last week, this offense on Denver is starting to face real teams now. And
it's coming fast. It's coming fast for Denver.
Loch, it's here, buddy. I mean, they're starting to face real teams. Pittsburgh is one of the most legitimate defenses in the NFL. And I feel like this offense is extremely easy to game plan against, seeing as they don't have too many weapons offensively. So
especially with Jerry Jeudy out too as well.
Yes.
Doesn't help their case.
No. So who's the main guy is going to be scoring for them? It's either going to be, it's going to be in the backfield with Javonte and Melvin Gordon, which is easier to stop for that Pittsburgh defense. Cameron Hayward. I mean, you have both TJ Watt.
TJ Watt, yeah,
for sure. But then who are they going to be throwing to? They're going to be throwing to big tight end Noah Fant. So I don't like him this week in that matchup. He could have a good game potentially, depending on what Pittsburgh defense does, but I don't think they'd be that stupid to not focus their game plan on him. And then finally, also Joe Mixon versus Green Bay. This one's kind of self-explanatory. Green Bay is a good defense, and Joe Mixon is dropping as well. I mean, he only had 13 points last week versus Jacksonville. So, I mean, that's not something that's impressive or something that you really want on your fantasy team. So definitely Joe Mixon. So those are the starts and sits for this week. Now, Lachlan, fantasy player of the week. Can you give us one of them?
I think the only option is Tyreek Hill, Kansas City Chiefs. We rhymed off the weekly stats at the beginning. Just ridiculous this week. Prayers up to anyone who was facing him in fantasy.
Because you probably took the L.
Yeah, there's a good chance when any player puts up 47 that you might take a loss. So yeah, it's a tough day to be a manager facing someone that dominant. The Eagles just could not hang all day with him.
They could not. I don't think he's going to have as nearly as big as a week against that Buffalo defense. That being said, I do expect around half of what he got, which is still over 20. So Tyreek Hill should have a big week. Honorable mention though. So he had 47.6 fantasy points. Honorable mention though, Lachlan, to your very own Cordero Patterson, who had 3 receiving touchdowns as a running back. He's not really a running back, but he's listed as a running back in fantasy football. He had 34.6 points. So definitely an honorable mention to him. And
just quickly on him again. This post I saw just fascinated me. Cordell Patterson has more receiving touchdowns than DeAndre Hopkins, Travis Kelce, Tyler Lockett, Amari Cooper, Aaron Jones, who's a running back, maybe shouldn't be on that list, but they just added him
Still
for
gets
star power.
targets.
Terry McLaurin and Justin Jefferson. That's no slouches on that list. More receiving yards than DeAndre Hopkins, George Kittle, and Adam Thielen. Again, a lot of stars there. More PPR fantasy points than Devontae Adams, Terry McLaurin, Justin Jefferson, Najee Harris, Aaron Jones, Travis Kelce, Ezekiel Elliott, and DK Metcalf.
Lock, that's not a light list.
That's
by
nuts.
any means.
And there is multiple running backs on that list too. Yeah. Multiple top running backs on that list.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's insane.
It is insane. And I mean, he's definitely the surprise player of the year so far. Definitely front runner for NFL comeback player of the year.
Who knew?
For sure. Because I mean, it's incredible what he's doing with that Falcon. And it's so, I mean, you wouldn't expect that out of the Falcons offense.
It's so unsuspecting.
No, it's not like he's on paper. I love saying on paper because it's true. On paper, he's probably not even a top 3 weapon on that team.
No. Coming into the season,
yes,
he was looking like a backup running back, and now all of a sudden he is like a number 1 receiver.
Yeah, he's putting up numbers like that. I mean, it's something so special to watch. So
yeah,
as we mentioned, he has to be an honorable mention just because of what we thought he was going to be before the season, which was nothing to what he's blossomed into.
Yeah.
So, and hopefully, we'll keep that production up. And I think not to 34 points a week, but I think he will to some extent.
What's the question of the week here? What do we got?
We got a good question, Lachlan. That's a great question. Fantasy question of the week: is Trey Lance worthy of picking up and or trading for? So I had to look at this more in depth. And if you look at his schedule in the next 5 games, he's got Arizona, then a bye week, Indianapolis, Chicago, Arizona again, and the Rams. So those are amongst some of the best defenses in the NFL. So you probably think that you do not want to pick him up. And that's why I said you should definitely not start him against Arizona upcoming. However, Trey Lance is a talented quarterback. He has a phenomenal coach in Kyle Shanahan. He's going to take that starting job over Jimmy Garoppolo. And his next 5 weeks after that tough game, he's got Jacksonville, he's got Minnesota, Seattle, Cincinnati, and Atlanta. Teams that he can definitely shine against, kind of like Justin Herbert at the end of his, even though he did have a fantastic rookie campaign, he won the last 4 games of the season because the schedule wasn't the toughest, defense weren't the best, and he was able to pull off those wins. I see very similar situation here for Trey Lance. So I do think that he's worthy of picking up because he could actually, depending on how much of a hot streak he can get on, which I think I'm predicting that he could get on a pretty substantial one towards the bottom 5 weeks of the season. I think he could have some big weeks and he could help you win fantasy football games. So this is some guy, and say you pick him up now because he is a starter. He had 20 points last week. What if he pops off and actually going against what I said? What if he actually does well against the Indianapolises of the league and the Chicagos of the league? Then you have an even more valuable fantasy player. So I think regardless, it's smart to pick him up and keep him on your bench, whether that's starting him in 2 weeks or waiting. But definitely don't start him next week. So that is our fantasy question.
Another angle to look at this as well is, with the 17th game being added into the NFL season, like I know, I've had Mahomes the past couple of years, and week 16, it's kind of a nothing week for Kelce and Mahomes, right? Because they kind of they got the division on lock, champagne's on ice, right? Like just don't get injured for playoffs. You got a week off next week. Don't have to play in the wild card game, all that kind of stuff. That division is a dogfight.
Yeah.
It's shaping up to be right now, playoff spot wise.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like a team like this next 3-4 weeks for San Fran is really going to shape their outcome because a lot of divisional games coming up in the next couple of weeks for the Niners.
Yeah.
And also down the stretch, I feel like with the level that the Rams are going to be at the whole season, the way the Cardinals are playing right now, and Seattle just always being Seattle, it's going to be a dogfight. There's no doubt about it. And San Fran's going to get in the mix there a little bit too.
Yeah.
no doubt, because they have a pretty darn good team over there.
They have an extremely talented roster who
know,
should have
that
beaten the Green Bay Packers if they managed the clock better.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
if Trey Lance is in, he's going to be playing some very, very meaningful football down the stretch, which, you know what, if you're in the playoffs, you're in the finals, you're going to need a quarterback that has to lay it all out on the line, because those are the quarterbacks at the end of the day, end of the season, that get you the most points and can get you championships.
For sure, Lachlan. And like basically right now he's about here. The ceiling for this guy is way up here. So your return on investment, if you pick him up now or over the next couple of weeks before he gets snagged up, could be absolutely phenomenal and ginormous and could really pay you back. So with that comes to the conclusion of our episode. And Lachlan, we always have to remind everyone at home, Thursday is friggin' practically here. And who is it? We actually have a good game. We actually
Rams and Seahawks. And Seahawks.
I'm fired up for some Thursday night football.
Thank you, NFL schedule. Finally, they give us decent Thursday night game.
Yes. I'm very happy. Happy for London. We're coming back to London. I mean, that should be.
It's coming home.
Yeah, it's coming home, baby. Get those wings ready.
Man.
Get those wings ready.
Yeah, seriously. Preheat that oven at about 7:45. Mm-hmm. Not degrees, of course, but
no
time.
You don't want those
just to clarify.
Wings, yeah.
Just to clarify. Yeah. Saturday night. Order takeout from B-Dubs. Order all you want. Don't eat it. That's the big thing. Do not.
Maybe you can have one, depending on how hungry you are, because you smell it. You smell it, and you might want one.
You smell it, you're gonna want one, and then all of a sudden
they're all gone.
1.5 pounds of wings is down the hatch, and
you're left with about 4 for the next morning, and you're starving.
Yeah, but crack open your beverages of choice with breakfast or B-Dubs or whatever you get Saturday night that you preheat and reheat in the oven. And watch some good football Sunday, because it's going to be another stellar week.
Sure.
And that again will conclude episode number 5 of the Fantasy Cast. 5, yes. Thank you guys so much. As always, the Fantasy Cast is powered by Shocker Sports. So for everyone on our team, the Fantasy Cast team, he's Ty White. I'm Lachlan McTagg, and we will see you guys next week.